Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and to all of my students. I welcome all of you to the third model of the third week lecture on the national differences in political economy. So far, we have shared of an idea that the review of how the political, economic, and legal systems of countries can vary along the way global wide, and also there are potential benefits and also at the same time the costs and risks of doing business, dealing our products, services, and contents in a country that are functions of its political and economic and legal systems all integrated together. So in the first model, I have given you some of the theoretical rationales of the political system. I'm pretty sure everybody's now familiar with it. And in the second model, we have talked about some of the economic and legal systems, right? And how the differences in the structure of economic system and the legal system between countries can have important impacts of implications for the practices of international business. For the third model, we would discuss the rate of economic progress in a country would seem to depend on the extent to which that country has a well-functioning market economy in which property rights should be protected. At the end of the second model, I have dealt with it, and we're aware that many countries are now in a state of transitions. See, for my international students, we are looking at one of the capital-driven markets transferring from the emerging market state to how we try to perceive economic progress. Okay? And there is a marked shift away from totalitarian governments, majorly, and command or mixed economic systems toward democratic political institutions and free market economic systems. See, that is better off to deal with our products, services, and contents at the same time. And if we do have time, I would like to um, propose an agenda for you guys to think critically on free market economics stimulating greater economic growth, where the state-directed economies would stifle growth in the comparison, right? So we have to think more into the market-based system and a democratic political systems as well, which is an essential condition for sustained economic progress. Then this kind of creates values for us to discuss how we're going to, as an entrepreneur or business leader in the future paradigm, or the cases that we deal with the global companies like Amazon, Samsung Electronics, Disney, Netflix, whatsoever, you know, how they can, while they penetrate into the foreign market expansion, create values through these kind of contents in such democratic political system and market-based economies. So let us begin by understanding the determinants of economic development. I have frequently lectured you guys that the political, economic, and legal systems of a country can have a profound impact on the level of economic development, right? And hence that reflects on the attractiveness of a country as a possible market or production locations for a global firm. Throughout this semester, we're going to look into the products, services, and the contents of a global company and write a case study for your final report. And one of the things that you need to consider is based on a question right here, which states what determines a country's level of economic development, right? Why do we need to discuss economic development? Is higher the economic development, a country would have a tendency to possess a transparent political system, economic system, and at the same time legal system. When it is transparent, there is a tendency to create more values, and we want more values toward handling our products, services, and contents for the next generation. Then how are we going to generate ideas to measure levels of economic development? There are two ways simply. And first of all, it would be gross national income, GNI per person. And the second one would be PPP, known as purchasing power parity. Let's simply go through this. First of all, when I talk about GNI per person, we have an idea that different countries have dramatically different levels of economic development, right? And this GNI per person can be a common measure of a country's economic development level. Okay? It is regarded as a yardstick for the economic activities of a country, and it measures the total amount of annual income received by the residents of a nation. So it represents an average of a single person's standard of living of that country. And for instance, okay, in 2005, when I look at the data here, Japan, for example, had a GNI per capita of $38,980 here. But at that time, China has achieved only about $1,740. So how differences that data occurs here represents how rich Japan was and how poor China compared to Japan of a single citizen of that specific nation can be, okay, determined regarding a country's level of economic development. When you guys are dealing with your products, services, and any content to sell with, okay, and when we look at the data of GNI per person, the pricing strategies can be deferred, right? When we penetrate into the Japanese market compared to the Chinese market, because any person or any citizens of that specific country's GNI may differ along the way. And also we talk about PPP. Let's talk about this shortly, okay? And this is generated by Amartya Sen, and Nobel Prize winner scholar, that the economic development should be seen as a process of expanding the real freedoms that people experience, and the measurements kind of mingle the presence of basic health care and basic educational indexes, okay? So it adjusts the cost of living, maybe say in the United States compared to China. How expensive is it to live in the United States or live in other economic developed countries? And that is one good measure to kind of glance into the economic developments of a country. This is one good example of how to illustrate on countries' comparison on economic development, okay? Let me settle you guys with some of the economic data for selected countries by your professor, and I have depicted some of the countries representing major economic development in the global market here, which are Brazil, China, Germany representing Europe, India, Japan, Nigeria, Poland, Russia, Switzerland, the United Kingdom, and the United States. So, as you can see, the GNI per capita that you have previously learned from me, in 2007, this index is in US dollars, where you can glance that an individual citizen, Switzerland, they are rich, right? $60,000. This was in 2007, so it might have gone up. And the poorest country would be represented by, what is it, Nigeria and India, okay? And look at the GNI PPP per capita. It reflects, you know, how the economic development has stated among the countries here. But one of the fundamental measurements that we need to glance here is the GDP growth rate. And we understand that emerging markets like China has been growing rapidly, like 9%, while Switzerland, United Kingdom, and United States, as we depict the richest countries, have the limitations in the growth rate. So future growth rate is more dependent on the emerging economies. And if we plan out our products, services, and contents here and try to penetrate into the futuristic market, there could be, some of the aspects of decision making, strategic management process would go along the way into the decisions on where to go into the market, right? To sell your contents, the product and services. And also at the same time, I want you guys to glance not only with the single index of GNI per capita and also the PPP, and also at the same time, look into how the future will be like in terms of GDP growth rate. At the same time, we need to understand the relevance of size of economy of GDP, right? Look at the size of the United States. It's huge, isn't it? $1 billion, $13,811 billion of a GDP market, and that was 2007, before Lehman Brothers. Okay? So, the penetration of the market size and considering how the future will be like, and the reason why I have given you the economic data for selected countries of the past is that if you can find and search for these kind of measurements as of today, 2020, there is a transitional shift, enormous change of the globalization and the global market economy. So there would be an insightful ideas to think about regarding the value creation, okay? With the knowledge that we now know how to measure the economic development, we have another question to fill in, which is how does political economy influence economic progress? We need to look into the trends here, global, worldwide. And it is often argued that a country's economic development is a function of its economic and political systems. Okay. So what then would be the nature of the relationship between political economy and the economic progress? We need to possibly untangle the main threads of such arguments and make a few generalizations as to the nature of the relationship between the political economy's influence on the economic progress. And first of all, I want to mention a agenda that relates to innovation and entrepreneurship. Okay, they are the engines of growth. There is a wide agreement that innovation and entrepreneurial activities are the engines of long-run economic growth. Okay? Well, defining innovation, I'm pretty sure you guys are familiar with the concept, is broadly to include not just new products, services, and contents, but also the new processes, the new organizations, new management practices, new principles of management, new content, and new strategies. See, the reason why your professor has dealt with, for the first week, we have talked about the globalization issues. And in the second model, the second week, I have reinforced an idea of strategic management and the strategic management process here, right? All those processes, strategies, contents, singularly in penetrating into the global economy are all innovation, okay? And innovation is also seen as the product of entrepreneurial activities, and often entrepreneurs first commercialize innovative new products and processes, and these entrepreneurial activities provide much of the dynamism in an economy. Look at Jeff Bezos in Amazon, Elon Musk for Tesla and SpaceX, Bill Gates, Microsoft, Steve Jobs for Apple, right? These are all good, entrepreneurs running as an engine the economies of the United States through their technology, through their innovation. They gotta be rich, okay? And these innovation and entrepreneurship would require a market-based economy. Okay, the first conclusion leads logically to a further question, which I will give it to you right now. What is required for the business environment of a country, of a single country, to be conducive to innovation and entrepreneurial activities? Okay? So, what is the advantages of a market economy? If many-fold countries are trying to make a transition into the market-based economies, what is it? And I can argue with that, with this vein, the economic freedom associated with a market economy would create a greater incentives for innovation and entrepreneurship than either a planned or a mixed economy. Okay? So democratic regimes are probably more conducive, more possible for a longer term economic growth than dictatorships. Look at North Korea. Okay? It's just horrible economies out there. They are starving to death because they don't have a market-based economy. Government's planning it all for them, but it is not effective. There is no motivation for it. Okay? Well, similarly, with the arguments that I made just before, existing businesses are free to improve their operations through innovation, technology, and to the extent they are successful, both individual entrepreneurs like Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos, right? These entrepreneurs, they have established business and try to put their content into this market-based economy for their higher profits, right? They have created values. And thus market economies would contain enormous incentives to develop innovation and create their sustainability over and over again. Subsequent economic growth would be in a circulation. Better provides the better. All right? So since we don't have much time, I can give you briefly how free our country is politically, and this is some of the maps that I have reinforced in 2008. Okay, for the green, you've seen that there are political freedoms out there, very free. You can see it in the Northern and Southern American continents, okay, Australia, and some of the Western European countries. And for the blue sector, we see there is less freedom in terms of political system, okay? Some of it has changed. This is 2020, but the reason why I show you for the past is that you can search out here and kind of compare how the transition of the market has changed. Okay? This map here shows along the way the distribution of economic freedom in 2008. So how free our countries economically are derived out here in this map. Okay? For the green side, that include United States, Canada, and Australia, they are depicted as 80 to 100% free for the economic system. And as you can see, there are different colors here that differentiate other nations. How free are they? For Korea in 2008, we were represented as 60 to 70% moderately free. Okay, this was before the Lehman Brothers, so there should have been a major change throughout the shift toward 2020. I believe we are more economically recognized free from the past. But for the international students, look into your countries and see how the economic system, the freedom rate is rated, and how it has changed throughout from the 2008 to 2020. One of the fundamental takeaways that you need to understand is to apply the knowledge that you have learned from your professor to imply it for your future careers, right? I consider my students, especially international students, as future business leaders, okay? And possible managers who are going to involve in the changing economies of the globalization issues, okay? So then you need to find the attractiveness of a country, as we have learned, as a market, and invest on your products, services, and contents depending on balancing the likelihood of long-run benefits of doing business in that country against the likely cost and the risks. Okay? Now we have known the fact that many of the countries are now open. That means there are Western business styles out there, market-based economies, making a transition from emerging economies to opening up the market. Look at China now. Okay? So by identifying and investing these early in a potential future economic global firms may be able to gain first mover advantages. So even if we have the technological, innovative contents with us, how are we going to make a first moving advantages to penetrate into these kind of westernized markets, open markets? It's one key question to additionally ask for us. We need advantageous positions, okay? How to enter into the market in a earlier setting would be to configure out in a strategical terms. Then you need to understand the globalization, and at the same time, that was the first week, and second time, what is your logic to penetrate into this kind of markets as a manager would need a strategic management process, right? That would be the second week. And now I'm giving you the environmental conditions of how national differences can occur in political economy. But at the same time, we need to consider that creating value would also consist the costs and the risks that are very large, right? Different nature of countries, different systems, different languages. In theoretical terms that I have given you, different political situations, political system, economic system, and legal systems would make a dramatical shift and differences in product, workplace, language, pollution standards, right? And less legal protections for the property rights. How are you going to go through that as a manager would be another key question to ask for yourselves. Now we have run out of time, and this would be your last slide for the whole week lecture. Okay, I appreciate your attention and focus to link with our understanding of the national differences in political economy. But last question that I want to generate for you guys is, what does the changing economy mean for the managers, and what you guys should consider in dealing with your products, services, and contents here. As I have told you, the benefits of doing business in a country are a function of the size of the market and its present wealth, right? The population and the purchasing power, the economical development, and its future growth prospects. I have shown you how to measure these kind of growth rates by GDP. And by investing early in countries, as I have told you about the first mover advantage, that are currently poor but are nevertheless growing rapidly, a lot of countries are making its progress into transitional economies in opening up the market like the Western style. Global companies can gain these kind of advantageous positions, and you as a manager will have to think about the substantial dividends that you are going to gain, the created values from that product and services and the contents in the future, right? But along the way, I have told you that there are risks and costs, and the costs of doing business in a country tend to be great, where political payoffs are required to gain market access, where supporting infrastructures is lacking or underdeveloped, and where adhering to local laws and regulations is costly, which means there are three big things that you need to consider: political risks, right? Economical risks, and legal risks. And these risks of doing business in a country tend to be greater in countries that are politically unstable and that are subject to economic mismanagement and lack a legal system to provide adequate safeguards in the case of contract or property rights violation. So, you guys as a future business leader handling the products, services, and the contents of a global company, you guys would like to choose a attractive market position here, and you want to adjust to it. But how are you going to consider it, right? The theoretical framework that I have given you this week would not only provide you guys with a solid environmental analysis in terms of political economy and how national differences would impact on it, but also some of the takeaways that align with the first week lesson, and also at the same time second week lesson, where still prevailing idea of globalization occurring along with your logics of strategic management process has to be linked with the ideas of how countries differ, right? So this will be, enough for the third week lecture, and I hope you guys are safe during the times of COVID-19 pandemic situations, and look forward to meeting you in the fourth week lecture. Thank you very much.